Any views expressed in this film are those of the artists, recorded as part of the Future is Loading exhibition.
Hi, I'm Rudy Loewe. I'm a visual artist and artist educator. My pronouns are they, them. I work with different kinds of topics like Black history, colonialism, gender, sexuality, and how these themes can be looked at through painting, drawing, and printmaking. I am a light-skinned Black mixed-race person with two long braids, glasses, a nose ring, a cowrie shell necklace, and a little beanie hat.
Hi, my name's Tobi, pronouns they, them. I'm an interdisciplinary artist. I work mostly with mediums around visual, in terms of like video and sound, in terms of poetry and singing, kind of incorporating harmonies into my work. A lot of my topics and themes revolve around healing, ancestral language, and just coming back to nature. I am a dark-skinned Black femme with bold hair and a little tuft of a lock growing on the left side of my head. I'm wearing an abalone shell necklace. I have one earring in my right ear and two nose piercings, one in my septum and one in my actual nose, which is a circular ring, a spiral ring.
And you have beautiful lipstick.
Yes, a beautiful purple lipstick.
And we're having this conversation today alongside the Shape Arts exhibition, The Future is Loading, really just to talk about disability justice, in this time of COVID-19 and the global pandemic. So our next topic was thinking about what does all of this mean as artists, and what do we want from institutions and from potential collaborators?
That is a very important question, and it ties into the reality of the fact that we live in a capitalist society, and a lot of artists that I know, a lot of artists within my networks are like trying to be anti-capitalist, and that's not going to be possible if the collaborators, the institutions aren't actively trying to make that easy or possible. What is it? What are the resources that institutions have that they can afford to give away to people who might be artists but might not have access to all the things they need to fully fulfill developing their works? Because that's the thing about art that I really appreciate and enjoy and try to remind people of, is the fact that art is for everybody. It's accessible. It's supposed to be accessible to all. Whatever it is that's inside you that you're trying to bring out and trying to create, you deserve to bring that out of your body. You deserve to create these things. You deserve to heal. You deserve to let the world see it. You deserve for it to be witnessed. And so to collaborate with someone and to collaborate with institutions, I hope that they are really seeing the artist as an individual. They're really seeing the intersectionalities of their existences. They're really seeing what it is they would need to fully flourish, and then analyzing what parts of their institutions and what parts of their collaborative labor should go into making sure that these things are honored and these things are prioritized. Because a lot of times, people get burnt out trying to create work because they just don't have the things they need to make it possible, or they can't collaborate with people who are honoring their language of conversation, or at least trying to understand where they're coming from.
I feel like it's so frustrating because what happens is, for a lot of disabled artists, you're the individual person who's trying to fight this structural system that you shouldn't even have to be fighting. So if you're a disabled artist who has an access document so that you can have what you need when you're working in institutions, and to be made to feel like this is not just unusual, but like a problem, that you're like, that like you're a diva.
Yeah, like it's an inconvenience, like you're being extra. It's gaslighting. It's gaslighting at an institutional level.
Like, it's wild. Like, this is not like saying, oh, I want the moon. Do you know what I mean? This is just basic level stuff. This is what I need in order to be able to work properly. These are the conditions that I need. Like, honestly, I have taken naps under tables before and had people ask me, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I didn't know where else to go.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you shouldn't have to be put in those kind of positions. And if the care wasn't embedded from an institutional level, then it would be just a given that there was a space for that. And I feel like it started to become really clear that sometimes there are organizations that are starting to think about these things that, to be honest, it's really from other artists who have worked with those institutions and said, hey, look, you need to be doing this. That then they have changed their policies and that they get better, you know. So I just want to recognize the fact that it's actually from a lot of individual artists doing that work, that's why it's happened in some organizations. But there's so many large institutions that are still not thinking on this level. And even just the fact that all of these institutions have suddenly realized they need to have some kind of statement around Black Lives Matter, you know, really speaks volumes that all of these things that should be embedded in an institutional level are not. And that's why now they're like scrambling to try and like get stuff together where it's like, yeah, if you were doing this work already, you wouldn't be looking a fool out here, like trying to look like you care.
It's also the thing of all of this. We don't want performative allyship. We don't want performative statements. We want to see actually, like, I'd rather see a building get put up by a big institution that is fully accessible than see them put a statement on their website saying, oh yeah, you know, we're working towards making this, you know, more accessible to people who might be disabled. You know, that doesn't do anything for anybody. You know, there's a lot that words can do, but there's also sometimes when we don't need words, we need actual action, especially as Black people, especially as Black disabled people. These are some of the intersections that we're talking about. And these institutions also need to start thinking about how they will credit the people who are helping them create this transformation without then just absorbing it as something that, you know, they did all on their own. These things don't just, you know, you don't just like get inspired as an able-bodied person to make your work more accessible. Like some disabled person wasn't able to come to your event and then you were like, oh, I need to make sure I have, you know, someone who can do sign language at my events. You know, these are things, and you can just shout them out at your next performance, like, hey, you know, this wouldn't be possible without. And this is the same thing that can apply to institutions as well. Like there is a capital there. There is a lot of labor and time and effort and energy and work that goes into actually being vulnerable enough to share our needs and our realities with you. So when you're taking that on board and then trying to, you know, incorporate it into how your infrastructure is working, you need to not forget that, you know, you're incorporating the spirit and the energy of people or someone, and to credit them 100% and fully, because that is very important to archive that these are the things that are making the change. And, you know, disabled people are the ones who are advocating for ourselves to make sure that we are seen and heard and cared for, like we care for so many people in our communities, you know?
Absolutely. And I think also there's so many different levels. I mean, just I guess to go back to intersectionality, like for a lot of Black disabled artists who are already not, you know, statistically, who are not being paid as well as a Black artist, as a white artist would. But then on top of that, having maybe like access needs that another artist might not have, it's like it puts you in a doubly precarious position, where it doesn't feel like a stable position to say, okay, well, actually, this is what you should be doing as an organization, as an institution. And it's so clear when it's an afterthought, because really it should be, you know, when you're making your funding bid, it should be already embedded in the funding bid that you are potentially going to need, you know, people to sign. You're going to need, do you know what I mean? You're going to need different kinds of resources, and it shouldn't be, oh, well, there's someone who needs this, so we now need to provide it. It should already be there, because the fact is lots of people are not going to events because they know that they're not going to have what they need there. And if it was already there, I think that more people would come.
Yes, I totally agree. And it's also just not thinking about access as just the wheelchair ramp, you know. Sign language is an access need, childcare is an access need, step-free access is an access need, you know, sometimes not having scent in the space is an access need. So just really like maybe even the creation of these kinds of lists of, okay, where are the things that we are able to provide and where are the things we aren't able to provide, and how are we acknowledging that deficit in our own capacity and making sure that that doesn't then exclude people is so important. Because access, I wouldn't be able to tell you all of the access needs that, you know, exist in the world, because my disabilities again are just very varied from, you know, the person who has a disability that I know that lives next door. It's never going to stop. It's not something that you're like, okay, cool, we have an accessible building now, so we've done everything we can. That's not how it works. You're going to have to consistently and constantly think about these things. So even just creating a team, paying disabled people to be consultants to help you create these more accessible spaces and more accessible events, and bring in more disabled people to your institutions is so important too. Yeah, just be consistent and constant and know that the work just never ends, and be okay with that too. So important.
You can watch more of Tobi and Rudy's conversation and view the Future is Loading exhibition on our website at www.shapearts.org.uk.